Hey there, welcome to the shop, fellow maker. We're continuing work on our Bender car here. We got the body all printed and put together. I was planning on working on the tires this week, but that's taking a little longer than I thought. So today, we're gonna dive into some of the nitty-gritty on finishing the body, especially these gnarly seams. It's pretty common in 3D printing that the object you want to print is bigger than the print area that you have. So that object gets cut into pieces and then printed, and then you gotta stick them together. And of course, that's what we've done here with our little car. Once your thing is all put together though, you've got to deal with these seams. It's really hard to get your seams perfect. I have some really nice ones here, but I also have some pretty nasty ones, and they need to be cleaned up. And there's a bunch of ways to tackle this. In the past, we've done things like using super glue and baby powder to make a paste that'll fill in the seam that you can then sand down. You can always use body filler like Bondo or something similar. Again, you mix it together, fill in the seam, and then sand it. Or my favorite method, we've done a bunch in the past, is to take some of your filament, the same stuff you printed it with, and a hot knife, and melt it down into the seam to fill it up. And then you can sand all that plastic nice and smooth. We're gonna do the same thing today, but we're gonna use a 3D printing pen as sort of a welder to stick these gaps together and fill in any missing spaces. I've already been doing some experimenting back here, and I want to show you what I've learned. Here's an example of a seam that worked really well. Both of these edges printed nice and flat. I sanded them a little bit and glued it all together, and it all matches really well. If we look over here though, everything lined up pretty well, but there is this gap. I can even fit my fingernail down in there. So that needs to be filled with something. Today we're going to weld it with our 3D printing pen. This is the printing pen I'm using, Mint 3D. There are a million of these out there now. This can go up to 230 Celsius, which is what we've got it set at for things like ABS or this PETG. This slider adjusts how fast it comes out, which is very useful. This sets the temperature, and then this button either retracts the material, or if I push this, it comes out the end. And there we go. So that is hot plastic coming out of there. I've found while I'm using this, it will continue to dribble out a bit, even when I'm not pushing it. So I have a paper towel ready to go just to clean up those boogers as I'm working. The speed can be really handy. So if I slow it down, it pushes out a little slower. And I've found that slower can be better up to a point. At a certain point, it gets so slow it hardly moves at all. But if it goes out too fast, a few things happen. It'll start to bubble. You can even hear some pops sometimes because there's bubbles in there. So the faster you go, the more it'll bubble, and then that leaves a void in your filling that you'll have to go back and refill. So finding the Goldilocks for the speed is pretty important. The other thing I found is that just oozing it into the crack is not enough. You want to try and melt the printed part a little bit with the nozzle. So I'll push the nozzle tip in there and it melts it a bit, and then I will fill the spot. And that way the new material coming out will bond with the old material there. So I'm melting the spot and then filling it with this material. And you'll end up with a lot of extra stuff sticking out that you'll have to trim or sand away, but that's fine.
Like real welding.
Yep. Grinder and paint make me the welder I ain't. I don't know if this is faster or better than just using a hot knife, but it is a lot of fun. And again, I'm just digging the nose of this down into the groove so it melts it a little bit before the new material is added. Now, while that's still a little pliable, it's easy to come in and cut away, although it is already started to set up quite a bit. But yeah, that more fresh stuff, you can come in and trim a little bit of that away so you don't have to sand it all off. For removing the bulk of this, I like using a file. It makes fast work of things like plastic. But for the bulk of this material, I'm going to use a palm sander. why do all this sweating when I've got electric power tools? I've got this random orbital sander here with 100 grit that should make short work of this, but I'm also going to end up using this to knock down all of the layer lines on my 3D prints. You can see this spot right here, I've already done that and it looks really nice and smooth. Let's take care of this little number. That's made really quick work of our seam, and we can see it's starting to look quite nice. I have a lot more work to do on these flat parts here, but the seam is pretty well filled in. I do see some minor cracks. I'm gonna have to body shop this entire thing, going with like a filler primer or a body filler or a spot putty to fill in tiny little gaps, but that crevice, that canyon, it's gone now. And not only that, this seam is going to be a lot stronger now because those are all melted together. Let's finish that up. Well, that looks and feels terrific, and it's really quick too. I don't have to wait for something to cure or dry. This stuff cools really fast. You can sand it immediately. So that's what I'm going to end up doing over all of these seams. I won't make you watch all of it. Just rest assured that's what's going to be happening in the background while we tackle the other parts of our Bender car build, like the tires. Here, I'll give you a sneak peek of one of the tires. There we go, fresh out of the mold. This is our first success, not our first attempt. We have more of these to make, and we're going to cover that in detail next week. I can't wait to show you. Just a quick one for you today, a fun technique for filling the gaps on your 3D prints. I'm sure you've got your own techniques that you like, so please share those down below. We always like to hear what you're up to. And I'm so excited to keep making progress on this project, and you all are too. The reception of this project has been great. I hope you're as excited as I am to see this thing start to come together. That wraps it up for this quick video. Thank you so much for watching. It's always a pleasure having you here in the shop with me. And a special thanks goes out to the members of our Extra Credit Club. These are the fine human beings who support us with their money and keep these videos flowing. You guys are great. Couldn't do it without you. That is it for me in the shop today. More on this next week. Happy crafting.